patient in delay, but wait as one who overstands. When spirit rise and commands, the gods are ready to obey. Rastafari lives. That was a poem from How a Man Thinketh.
Yes, Asu, thanks for blessing us again, man. So as you can see here, we have Khnuma Simmonds on the Zoom with us tonight. She is live in Studio C. I'm in Studio A, Soup is in Studio B, and our guest is in Studio C. Khnuma, wave to the crowd. We're streaming out here, there, and everywhere.
Good night, good night, good night.
Thanks for coming out for the third time. Inside joke for us here. But how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to see that we're up and going. We're live and recording, so I'm hopeful for this round.
Yeah, this better be it.
This better be it. 3 times a lucky charm. The 3rd time's a lucky charm, they say.
Yeah, we're going to say that 3 times, 3 strikes are out. We're just going to say, you know, if you get striked out, you got another chance to bat another inning. So
there you go.
How you been doing in light of the COVID-19 and all this madness happening around the world? Your family, your parents, how's everybody doing?
Everybody is doing well. Thank goodness, and thanks for asking. You know, this has been actually a blessing in so many ways because the family, we've been spending so much more time together because of the whole quarantine and social distancing and not going out as much, but spending more time together as a family. So I'm definitely appreciating the time to kind of slow down while the rest of the world does the same thing. You know, when people tell you to, you know, slow down or practice self-care or take a vacation, sometimes we feel guilty about it. But if the whole world's doing it, you know, there's not much to feel guilty about. So it's been a blessing on this end. I hope your family and everyone has been doing well too.
Yes, everybody is holding on. You know, just you know, wearing a mask and staying 6 feet apart. That's all we can do. You know, Soup.
Yeah.
Soup, you Ivy on your side?
Yeah, man. You know, just working home, just school, doing everything else. And as I said, self-care, dealing with the ground, dealing with the garden.
Yes.
That's a very important thing. I started back on the hard now, you know. So.
Okay, man. Well, give thanks for that, man. Yeah, so, Khnuma, girlfriendism.
Yes. There you go.
Like a word that maybe you made up. Is that in Webster's dictionary?
Well, it should be because I made it up. So yes, it is a word that I came up with. It's been inspired by my boutique, my girlfriend's closets in Croix. And, you know, we've been taking pictures of our journey from the time that we opened in 2011 to now. And one of the things that we try to capture is this feeling and this energy that we have when all the women come together. So we call each other girlfriends, right? Because we don't want to see the people who support our business as just a customer or a guest, right? They're usually coming to make a personal investment, not only in me, especially as a Black woman and a local woman, but also making an economic investment in our community because we keep money circulating when you shop local. So there's so much more than just, you know, oh, I like this dress, I like that bag, I want to buy it, I package it up and I go with it. There's a lot of conversation behind the scenes. There's a lot of sharing behind the scenes. And so we take pictures a lot, we post them, and you can capture a little bit of the feeling, but I needed to find a word that could really express the energy that women bring to the space, and even men too. It's interesting when men come to the space, sometimes they feel like, oh Lord, I'm just gonna sit on the corner right there while so-and-so shops. But you know, all the energy that comes to the space is a very special feeling. And so that feeling, we call it girlfriendism, because I couldn't find the word in Merriam-Webster dictionary. So when you can't find something, you just create it for yourself. So that's where girlfriendism came from.
Anything close to that in the dictionary?
Anything close to that? I would say it's a combination of unity, vibes, positivity, community, sisterhood. You could kind of mix all of those into the pot to come up with girlfriendism and consciousness, because most of the people who come, they come there with intention of supporting local. and knowing who is behind the designs, knowing the process behind the things that they wear. So there is a level of consciousness there. So yes.
Okay. Well, what I meant was, when you look in the dictionary, you have girlfriend, then you may have girlfriends and girlfriending.
Yes.
There's nothing in between there.
No, girlfriendism. We take it all and put it all into one. Our tagline for our store is empowering women through fashion, faith, and friendship. So I will say that there's a mix of that too. It really is, the fashion is what kind of brings people to the space, right? But then you have the faith is kind of infused, because a lot of times when people talk about the concerns they have or the issues they have, or a lot of people, even with COVID, for example, when they come into the space, it's like, they let go all of the stress of having to be quarantined, right? So it's more, like I said, than just the fashion. We then get to the faith side, because we talk to the girlfriends a lot about what they're experiencing and how they're dealing with it and how we could support them. And then in that process of sharing comes an inevitable friendship, right? Because when you share so much of yourself with other people, you can't help but to feel connected. Mm-hmm. So we really do, I think, live up, or at least we aim to live up to that tagline of empowering women through fashion, faith, and friendship. And together we get that feeling of girlfriendism.
Okay. So it's called My Girlfriend's Closet STX. So how long have you been in business now?
So we opened in November 2011. So 9 years this year. And hopefully we'll make it to 10 years next year. So almost at our 10-year mark.
Okay. So what inspired you to do this? I mean, you're very fashionable. Did that play into doing it?
Yes, a little bit. I actually started back, and every time I talk about how I started the store, I have to go back and talk about how I got into this industry. It started with my friend. Her name is Monique Gonzalez, and she had a boutique called La Italia Shoe Boutique in downtown Christiansted. And so it started out with fashion, because I was walking downtown where Rhythms is. I think there was a little space there. And I saw these fur shoes, and I was like, what? They have fur shoes in St. Croix? I got to go see what's going on in here, because I do love fashion. Fashion is a form of art for me. So I went in and I was just in love with her pieces. And so I would shop there so often. And mind you, I was a teenager. I was in high school, right? But I've always been a little couple years ahead of my time. So I was wearing shoes that most of my high school friends weren't wearing, and wearing clothes, and had, a style that most high school girls didn't have. But I was attracted to it. And she says, you know what, you shop so much, you sure you don't want to just work for shoes? And I said, I sure will. So I ended up working with her, and I was with her throughout her journey. She had 3 different locations, and she grew every time. And her husband at the time worked with Hovensa. When it closed, she also closed her boutique. So I was like, where am I going to shop now and get all of my really nice fashion, So she gave me her blessing to go ahead and, she said, why not open your own boutique? And I said, you know what, I think I will. And, the girlfriendism kind of was inspired now then from my mom, my sister, my niece, and I, because we're like this, we're tight. Usually you see one, the other one coming around the corner somewhere. So if somebody see me, they're like, where your mother? Give her 2 seconds, so we know she's around the corner. We were really, really close, and I wanted to bring that same feeling, that same connection to a boutique. So I wanted to find balance between having nice high-end exclusive items, but a vibe that was very personal and didn't feel too, I don't want to put a word to it. It'll come to me. But I didn't want it to feel so high-end that women couldn't be themselves and be authentic, if that made sense. So I really wanted to create a space that did both. Okay.
So your boutique caters to, I guess, expensive stuff and less expensive stuff.
Yep, we have a range. We started out carrying some items that were maybe, I would say, $89 up in terms of cost. And then after Hovensa, and then after, some of my local girlfriends like, well, I can't afford nothing in there. And I was like, yes, you can. Because you have money for what you want to have money for, right? But I said, okay, I'm going to try to widen that range. So now we have things that, could be a mug that's, $10 up to, artwork that's $2,000, because I do have my father's artwork in there as well. So Elroy Simmonds, he is well known in the Virgin Islands. He did all of the paintings for the legislature there in St. Thomas. He did work for the Buccaneer. He traveled to Denmark. So it's kind of a father-daughter venture also. So he has his art boutique side, and then I have the fashion boutique side. So we do have a range of price ranges. We have a range of styles. That was the other thing. I didn't want to have one particular style because I want every woman to be able to come in and say, there's something here for me. And even with men, you know, men can come in and shop for their girlfriends or their wives or their daughters and find something that they would like. And then, of course, the artwork is something that if you really want to have a piece of St. Croix with you, you can't get a piece from Elroy Simmonds anywhere else. So, yeah, we try to be, you know, have variety.
Okay, so his artwork is only exclusive in your boutique?
Correct. So he has shown some pieces at the museum center, at Top Hat in town. So he does his exhibits, but his full collection is available at my girlfriend's closet.
Okay, cool. That's nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And as far as the stuff that you have there, I mean, are you making it? Are you ordering? Is it flown in? Is it donated to you?
So you don't want me making anything because you would not want to see what you would be looking like, okay? Or I would be looking like. So no, I don't make them, but I am very, very particular about how I go about shopping. So most of the pieces, I would say about 80% of the pieces that are in the store, I could tell you who made it. I could tell you their names, where they live, what their family is like, where they're located. So this piece, for example, I designed this piece, right? But it was made by a sister. Her name is Deandra, and she specializes in leather. So I told her, I said, you know, I really love what you do with creating leather pieces, but I want to add a touch of my culture and my style with my madras. So we put the madras and the leather together. Now, this is the only piece like this, right? And so we made other pieces as well. So when someone comes into the store, they know that I designed it. A sister in Louisiana, whose name is Deandra, she put it all together. And they're going to probably be the only ones who has this piece because it was made specially for the boutique. So I do have history. Behind every piece, there is a story. And I'm connected to the people of that story.
Okay. Okay.
But Khnuma,
Yes.
when you wake up in the morning, who gives you that inspiration?
Ooh, who gives me that inspiration? Well, let me say, I am a woman of faith, so I definitely believe in God. And I do think, though, that my spiritual journey is one that isn't necessarily looking up, saying, okay, God, tell me what to do today. It's more of looking in. I do believe God lives in all of us. And so if I could say the God within me, if that makes sense, I think is what inspires me every day when I wake up. It's like, okay, what is supposed to be my purpose on this earth today? Who am I supposed to impact, inspire, help, empower? Actually, I can't empower anybody. Only you can empower yourself, but I can inspire someone to be empowered, right? And so I do have that process every day as what do I want my mark to be on the earth today? What do I want the impact to be? And sometimes that just ranges from supporting another sister who's in business to going out on the front lines and protesting against WAPA, or, you know, it may be assisting a survivor of domestic violence. So it ranges day by day, but I would say the God within me, I do feel like I have a very strong faith that's not easily shaken. I don't see myself as someone who looks outward so much for validation, or, you know, I do believe in prayer, but I also believe prayer and action. That's where the God within me are able to put those two things together to actually make change. So I hope that answered the question. I hope it makes sense.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So give us your location, your store hours, that kind of stuff.
Yes. So the address is 15 King Street, but it's actually on Prince Street. So it's interesting how the addresses work. So we're in downtown Christiansted. If anyone knows where Zenny's is, we are right before her. We actually share the same address. One is A and one is B. So I'm 15A and she's 15B. If folks are not familiar with Zenny's, if they park at the First Bank parking lot facing west, they would be looking right at my boutique. If they're coming from Company Street heading west, they can make the right at Samson House and Holy Cross Church, and then I would be directly on their left. So it's Prince Street, but the address is 15 King, but we have quite a few markers around. But we also have our website, which I'm excited about because we're expanding. Our website has been www.mgcstx.com. That's where people can shop online, and that has been particularly helpful during this time with COVID, since our boutique is only open on Saturdays. Because today is June 30th, and I am going to be observing Emancipation on the 3rd throughout the weekend. We'll be open on Thursday instead, but typically Saturday from 12 to 4, we're open, and then folks can always shop online at www.mgcstx.com. But we are launching our new website August 1st, which is National Girlfriend Day. Did you know that there was such a thing?
National what?
Girlfriend Day.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a thing. That's a thing. It wasn't my thing. I didn't create it. I looked on this, free calendar that has all these special dates on it. And apparently August 1st is National Girlfriend Day. So I'll actually be launching my new website, which is going to talk about a whole range of services, even beyond the boutique.
Okay.
So I'm excited about that.
And any surprises with the fashion stuff?
Any surprises with the fashion stuff? Well, we're going to have new arrivals for sure. So we'll definitely be sharing that and highlighting specific artists, one being my sister. So anyone who knows my sister, she's definitely the more conservative one out of the two of us. So I think people who know her would kind of be surprised with the artistic side that she's been exploring, and she's going to have her pieces as an exhibit at the store when we launch for National Girlfriend Day. And then we also have a student from Complex who is amazing. Her name is Auris, and she has actually been working on our logo on our black wall. So when I opened, I had a black wall for my dad to put all of his artwork, and we decided that we wanted to offer that wall to a young artist in our community to put their first large mural, which is going to be of our logo. So she's actually working at the store. So even though we're closed, we're still improving and working on different projects, so that way when we do open full time, it can continue to be a safe space for the women who come to shop, and men too.
Okay. So it sounds like what you're saying is you're going to have a high energy fashion show on August 1st.
Are you telling me to have a high energy fashion show? I could do that. I definitely have been playing with the idea of having a virtual fashion show. Yeah, because, our numbers are going up day by day, which is expected. I don't think it's unique to us per se, but I know people are still kind of on the fence about, whether they want to open full time, if they feel comfortable going out. So I have played around with that idea of a virtual fashion show. But either way, we are going to have something special for the girlfriends, especially launching our new site.
Okay, perfect. Khnuma, as we roll on here, you do many things.
Yes.
The next thing we want to talk about real quick here is the Soca Caribbean Dance Fitness.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing right before I came on here. I taught a belly dancing class. So let me actually connect that. So I've been doing a lot in general. I've been all over the place. I have my boutique. I've been teaching fitness classes. At one point, I was working with the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Council. I was executive director there. So I've always had my hands in a lot. And I've learned to just embrace that people of color are just multifaceted. We have so many talents. And so I've learned that I no longer try to dim that or choose one. I'm going to do all of it. But part of my website launch is kind of bringing all of those components together. So one of the things is with the Girlfriendism website, there'll be 5 branches. One will be Girlfriendism Fashion, which is the boutique, which we spoke about. The other is going to be Girlfriendism Fitness, which is the Soca Caribbean Dance Fitness, where women can come together and feel safe to dance and explore their sensuality and just have fun. A lot of it is choreography. So people sometimes say, oh, well, I've taken a Soca class. So for me as a dancer, I know the difference between fitness and aerobics exercises and then dance. Okay. So my idea is marrying the two. So the classes have a lot of choreography in them. You have to have some sense of musicality to kind of catch up. So it's an intermediate to advanced class. I like to call it a class for instructors or for dancers. It's a good class for them. But, I'm working on making it open for all levels. So that's the Girlfriendism Fitness part of it, where we, highlight our Caribbean artists. So we use Caribbean music, a lot of music from the VI as well, arrange soca, calypso, reggae, dance hall. We do the whole gamut. And I put together my own choreography to every song. So that's why I call it soca as opposed to SOKA, right, which is the music genre. A lot of it is inspired by the genre soca, but the business itself is trademarked somewhat after my name, which is KHNUMA, and soak is SOKH. So most people say soak. When they see it, they say soak Caribbean Dance Fitness. It's soca, so it sounds like the music, but the KH is my own way of branding the movements that go along with that. So I do, just like I handpick everything for the store, and I'm very intentional about that. Every song, I put the movements together based on how that makes me feel, what it communicates. And so I'm also very intentional about the movements that go with each song as well. The other 3 branches for the Girlfriendism is going to be Girlfriendism Business. So I am at the stage now where I want to help other people of color to open their own businesses. Especially, you know, women who may be interested. They might be braiding hair at home, doing nails here and there. And I want to be able to guide them into opening their own business, whether it be brick and mortar or online, but having a business plan. So that's going to be Girlfriendism Business, helping other women to open their own businesses. Because I'm not one to be afraid of competition, if that it makes sense. I know some people are like, oh, well, aren't you afraid to help somebody with their business and then they take your idea? Well, if they take my idea, I'll just create a new one. That's the good thing about creativity. And there's enough for all of us, right? So I want to see other women advance as well. And then there'll be Girlfriendism Wellness. So last year we hosted a series of wisdom walk talks that were excellent. We had some popular ones. Sex, science, and spirituality was one of them that we hosted. As you could imagine, everybody came and they wanted to talk about the sex part. They want to talk about the spirituality and the science part. Like, you got to have all 3 together. So we had conversations about that. We spoke about forgiveness, the power of forgiveness, and even how that impacts our ability to move forward in life, whether it be with business or in other relationships. So the wellness part, the Girlfriendism Wellness, really looks at the person as a whole. And I really do believe that in order to be successful in a business, you have to also be successful at your own self-reflection and your own growth. Because a lot of times businesses are stagnant because the owner behind it is also stagnant. So in order for your business to even grow, you as a person have to grow. And then Girlfriendism Hope is going to be my nonprofit that I'm working on, which will help individuals who are going through trauma, but through an artistic lens. So specifically domestic violence and sexual assault, but all forms of trauma as well. I really want to see more community healing. So even as we talk about Black Lives Matter and things like that, when I look at posts on Facebook alone, I could see the anger, the pain, the hurt behind a lot of the posts, whether people are for it or against it. And I think it's really an opportunity for us to do more healing as a community. So that's one of the things that Girlfriendism Hope will address. So those are the 5 components of the Girlfriendism campaign. And yes, soca is one of them. That's a long explanation, I know.
Well, it's part of your plan. So, you know,
everything I love together, put it all under one umbrella.
So how long have you been working on this plan?
Well, actually, I think this plan has been working on me for a while, right? I just didn't know. And so now I've been intentionally working on the plan since I resigned from DVSAC in April, late April. So the plan has always been there, you know? So, and this is one of the things that I think COVID have been able to slow down. One, releasing myself of a traditional 9-to-5 and being able to think more creatively and really be in tune with my spirituality and trying to figure out what is my gift supposed to be to the world and what is the world gifting me in return. So that kind of brought me a lot of clarity. Everything that's been happening, I know it has been stressful for many people. For me, it has been a time of reflection and brought a lot of clarity. So I would say from the end of April up until now, I've really been working on finding some cohesiveness in everything that I do, and it's coming together.
It's coming together, okay. Love it when a plan comes together, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And this is your dance routines, you do that via Zoom, I think, as well. And you also do that at the local Beeston Hill gym here.
Yeah, so I've been teaching at Beeson Hill since 2009. I mean, when I first started out as a dance fitness instructor, actually it was just, they call it, it's aerobics certification. So it's not even dance per se, but I studied dance when I went to school. Actually, I came out of my mother's womb dancing. Like dance is just part of who I am and my history and my family, the Simmonds family. I mean, we have people who have been a part of Stanley and the 10 Sleepless Nights, and the Simmonds brothers from way back before I was even born. Like music and dance is just a part of who we are.
Mm.
And I've also danced with pretty much every dance school on island, from Caribbean Dance School to Point Dance Academy to Music in Motion to Extreme Edge Performing Arts Company to Crucian Dance Company. So I've always been involved in dance. And when I went away for undergrad, I studied communications as my major and dance as my minor.
Okay.
But I did my certification in aerobics. And when I came home, it was just something to make a little extra money while I tried to figure out, what my career path was going to be. And in doing that, I realized like I really wasn't excited about teaching class. And I was like, why? Like I would be happy when nobody would show up because we would still get paid. And I was like, that's terrible, Khnuma. You shouldn't want people to not show up. Like you need to like make your honest money. And so I said, well, I'm gonna have to find a way to make this fun for me. And of course, listening to the music and dancing to the music that we normally listen and dance to when we go to parties or in our home or on the radio, things that I could identify with, that's what I had to incorporate into the classes in order for me to even want to take my own class. And so I introduced in 2009 a soca aerobics class. But then I noticed that when people came, I think at first it was very high energy. What you would typically find in carnival. And so I think when people came, they wanted the flag raising and they walk up and they chuck up. And I said, okay, I like that. And I could do that, but I wanted something a little bit deeper. Okay. Something that would help women to be more in tune with their own sensuality and their sexuality. So I didn't want to hypersexualize dance movements, because I think, especially as somebody who's been doing domestic violence and sexual assault work, I have conversations all the time like, okay, this is what this song says. Is it demeaning to women, or is it just an expression of, musical art, and same thing with the movements that we see in carnival. It's like, okay, does this have a historical component, or is this something that is coming from porn culture and from degrading women? So I go through a lot of conversations in my mind when I put choreography together. It's not just like a 1-2 step, walk up, rock up, and throw it out there. Like I go through an entire process of how is this going to make the women who take this class, how is this going to make them feel? How is this going to validate them? How is this going to help them to stand in their own womanhood and move in a way that they could be proud of, but also not censoring them, So it's a constant trying to find that balance. I forgot what you even asked me. Lord have mercy. But yeah, I put all of that together as Soca Caribbean Dance Fitness, which is why it was important for me to put my own brand to it, because I know what people often expect when I say a Soca class, okay, which is lovely, high energy, carnival driven, party driven, right? But I also wanted it to be taking parts of that, but also being very intentional about how I want women to feel about themselves when they finish with a class. And so that's where the branding of it came. So I've been doing it since 2009, and it's been growing ever since. And yeah, I've been doing it virtually now because of COVID, but it's a blessing. My last class had, students from Texas, Wisconsin, and Florida. And if it weren't for COVID and having to do it virtually, they would have never experienced it. So I'm grateful for the ways that this pandemic is causing us to be creative and do things in a different way, and also helping us to reach people beyond the island.
Yeah. So this is fitness and not a Juve trap.
Correct. Yeah, it's dance fitness. It's dance fitness. So I take the best of both worlds. I take my dance training, right, to put a lot of the choreography together and the musicality of it. But then I also take my aerobics instruction and make it applicable to the gym setting. So we do use weights while we dance. We use weighted bars while we dance. So I find a way to fuse the two, which is something that I think is pretty unique, because you either find aerobics or you find fitness or you find dance, but you usually don't find a fusion of the three. So that's what we aim to do with Soca Caribbean Dance Fitness.
And you're playing soca music, or is it any kind of music?
Soca, calypso, reggae, dance hall. So even sometimes soca, gospel music, for a cool down. Or sometimes I've done like a soca class for a church even, and I do all of the soca songs that are gospel. So the whole spectrum, but I usually try to highlight our VI artists. So Nikki Brooks knows that I dance to her music all the time. Adamo has seen a couple videos of us dancing, AJ Ventura. I really want to push our local artists, and I think now that I have more time, hopefully I'll be able to do, have more collaborations with them, because I want them to be able to benefit also financially from the classes that I'm hosting. So that's something that I'm grateful to have more time to be intentional about that part too, because I don't think that we love to listen to music of different artists, but we don't often think about how do they survive if we download music for free, you know what I mean? If we always want them to entertain for free. So we have to be mindful of that. And so I do use their music a lot, and I do want to make sure that in the long run, I can do things that will support them and Soca Caribbean Dance Fitness financially also.
Yeah. Well, what you could do too is every time you play their song, if you play a Nikki Brooks song, just, give her 99 cents, because generally, you know, what you would pay on iTunes for a song.
Yes. And I follow them and subscribe to, their YouTube channels and things like that, so I could stay abreast, of course, and support even beyond my dance class.
Shout out to Nikki Brooks.
Khnuma,
Yes.
how many days a week you meet for your classes?
So right now I'm teaching every day. I'm working with 3 different groups, if you will. So I have my own virtual classes, right, that people pay me directly, and then we have our classes on Zoom. Government of the Virgin Islands also hires Soca Caribbean Dance Fitness. So they have a virtual program going on right now for their government employees. And I don't even know if most of their government employees know. So we definitely want to get the word out, but it's free for them. There's class every day, 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. 5 different instructors, and I'm one of them. So I teach that Monday, Friday in the morning, and then Wednesday in the afternoon. And then I also teach a senior class with AARP Virgin Islands on Friday. Every day I am teaching through some different platform or different organization.
Okay.
Yep. It's keeping me active. I think I'm exercising and dancing more now because of COVID than before COVID. Okay. I should be stepping out of COVID looking fly, honey.
All right. So the next topic here that we wanted to touch on real quick is your former executive director of VI Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Council. Yes. So tell us a little bit about that.
Known as DVSAC.
Tell us a little bit about that and what you did, and is some of that obviously some of that stuff is I guess still in play now. We also know too that I guess with COVID in play, there's been a little bit more domestic violence and and this and that, and you're hearing news reports.
So I was the executive director for DVSAC for almost, I think this year would have been 7 years in September. And so we work closely with our direct service providers, which means the individuals who provide crisis services like shelter, counseling, court services. So we work closely with Women's Coalition of St. Croix and Family Resource Center. And DVSAC, their main function though was the prevention side. So I did a lot of training, a lot of outreach, a lot of awareness events, interviews like this, whether it be on the radio, television, on social media, to really raise awareness on domestic violence, on sexual assault, the different ways that it shows up. Right? For domestic violence, for example, we know that the most common form that people think of is, one, we live in the same house together, right? Or we're husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend. And in these times, boyfriend and boyfriend or girlfriend and girlfriend, or you got slapped or you got pushed or you got hit. So a lot of the education that I did, for example, was to talk about violence beyond just what you can see, but what can also happen beyond doors, and violence beyond the confines of your home, because there's also workplace and organizational violence There's also, community violence, and all of that is interconnected.
Mhm.
So, our belief system was the more you talk about it, the more you reduce the stigma. So more people can be open about their experiences and then get help. One of the things that I really aim to do as a director was kind of look for the ways that domestic violence has been spoken about,
Mhm.
and see how that has either helped us or not helped us, and how we can rewrite the narrative. So one of the things that I hope I left as a legacy was really engaging men, for example. So historically, when we talk about domestic violence, because it was a movement that started out as a feminist movement that was started out and supported mainly by women, the voices of men were very much minimized.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I try to do is make sure that we emphasize the fact that abuse does happen to men as well, not at the same rate as women, but it does happen. Not perhaps in the same form as women, right? So usually it may be from man to woman, it be more physical aggression, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening psychologically, socially, verbally, right, from woman to man. So really having those conversations and seeing how it shows up so people could see where either they may be a victim of violence or they may be the one who's perpetrating it.
Mhm.
And also kind of define the myth that you can't be both at some point of your life. I mean, I haven't always been the perfect partner and haven't always said the nicest things to my partner that would necessarily make him feel like a man,
Mhm.
And so a lot of the healing that we have to do as individuals, as families, and as communities is being able to recognize when we ourselves might be doing or saying something that could be potentially abusive to somebody else, and not chastising ourselves for it, but recognizing it and seeing how we can make that adjustment. So my approach was definitely, I think, a bit more inclusive from how it may have been traditionally, because I want people to have the conversation. I don't want to do a training or do outreach and anyone say, oh, well, that's just for women.
Mhm.
Or, or just for that kind of woman.
Mhm.
Or, they're trying to break families apart. Or, I can't see myself in this situation, because everybody is affected by domestic violence in some way, whether as a victim, as a perpetrator, whether it happened to them or they knew somebody else. So that was my 7 years, is really just having conversations with people and helping them to see, and also them helping me to see the different ways that it shows up in our community and how we could best talk about it and prevent it, because that's the goal, is to prevent it.
Yes.
We don't want to get to the point where we have to call the popo and have, they come to the house and somebody gets arrested and all of that. We want to prevent it.
Yes.
And a lot of it is recognizing where we may need to make some changes. And a lot of it is also de-escalation.
Okay. So what are some of the things that you talk about prevention? What are some of the things that you were doing specifically? Would a couple come to you and say, hey, there's been some pushing and shoving, and then you would start your process?
So good question. So in a case like that, I would be referring them to the direct service providers, right? Because now at this point, the violence has happened already.
Okay.
So I would say, I'm sorry that you're having this experience. We work very closely with X, Y, and Z, and so we can set up an appointment for you.
Okay.
Now, if they come in and say, I'm feeling a little off in my relationship, I don't know what's wrong, but I'm not feeling good about it, and I'm not sure what to do, then that's where I can have more of a pep talk to explore with that person whether or not they're in a violent relationship, or maybe they're not in a violent relationship, but they need to be improved communication, because a lot of relationships is all communication. And when you see domestic violence gets to a point where it's not repairable, is because there was a breakdown in communication somewhere. Okay. So in being able to figure out the communication style of the couple, and again, domestic violence isn't just a couple or someone who's intimate, right? It could be at work. Like my colleague pisses me off and I don't really know how to address this with them. And so now there's all this tension in the office, right? Or, my supervisor knows that they could write me up if I don't do X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And so now I feel like I have to do it and I don't have a voice.
Okay.
That's an oppressive situation. That's abuse. Because if you have someone who is in a greater position to affect your life, right? Such as a supervisor and an employee. And that supervisor is using that power, because we always say domestic violence is about power and control. And everybody has power and everybody can have control in certain situations, but how you use it determines if you're abusive or not, right? So a supervisor may say, okay, well, I'm not going to pay you. And actually this happened to me. I'm not going to pay you because you spoke up about your rights as an employee. Or I'm not going to pay you if you don't come into work, even though it's COVID-19 and it's going to put your life at risk. That's power and control, because that person can literally not pay you. That person can literally affect your job and your livelihood. So now you're in a position where you feel forced to do something against your own will because you're afraid of the repercussions. So it doesn't always have to be in an intimate relationship. And so before the abuse happens, if someone comes in and says, this is what I'm experiencing, I'm not sure is this abuse or not, that's where we can kind of help to walk them through what they may need to do or what the resources may be that's available. And it may just be, oh, no, it's not an abusive relationship, but you could, you know, use some assistance in working out communication style.
Okay. So you were going around and you're doing classes, or, I mean,
yes.
on the prevention side?
Yeah, so we hosted a lot of our own workshops, and then we also responded to requests for training. One of the things that I started to do before I resigned was working on an Engaging Men campaign. So if you've ever gone to the Caribbean cinema, you may have seen some campaigns for No More. It's called the No More campaign. It's actually a national campaign that we also adapted locally. So we partnered with different agencies, but ours featured men specifically. So men talking to men about ending domestic violence, sexual assault, speaking up and being involved. Right before COVID, we were planning a men's march against community violence, and we were engaging with different men to plan that. So we were behind of it, but we said we want to identify men in the community who are already doing this work, because we know that most men are not abusers. There are a handful of men who can, you know, who have repeat offenses with multiple people. So we know that most men are good and we want them to be at the forefront. So that's something that we were planning actually alongside Men's Coalition of St. Croix and Family Resource Center in St. Thomas. So those were some of the things that were in the works and some of the things that I hope that they'll continue to do even though I'm gone.
Okay. Is violence against men on the rise? You know, the women just sort of beating up men, is that on the rise, or is that still sort of like a taboo kind of thing?
Well, you know, it's interesting. What I think we've been seeing, and this is in part because of awareness and advocacy, which is why it's important to talk about these things regularly, is we've been seeing more men become vocal. Now, does that mean that it wasn't always happening? No, it could have always been happening, but now men feel more comfortable talking about what they're experiencing. I do know that for the Men's Coalition and the Men Terminating Violence program in St. Thomas, they will be quick to tell you men are not the only ones who are in these programs. So those are programs where there may have been assault or a domestic violence situation, and the judge says, okay, as part of your sentence, you have to take batterer's intervention. They call it batterer's intervention, which is something else that I don't necessarily agree with, because I think language is very important, and how we label people can definitely have an effect on whether we make progress or not in ending violence. But they call it batterer's intervention program, and there are men and women who are part of that program. What I do think that I've witnessed is that women are a little bit sharper with their tongue.
Okay.
So you may not necessarily take a hand to lash out and slap you. Although I will say women now ain't taking nonsense like before. Not that they were necessarily taking nonsense before, but we hear about it more, especially with the age of the cell phone. They'll pick up a cell phone quick and beat you behind on camera, right? So we see that more, women being more, having more of a physical reaction if they are abused, but also the verbal and psychological part of it. So speaking down to their partner. And then there's also, you know, same-sex relationships too. So when you talk about women, we're not even just talking about women and men. We're also talking about women and women, and they have higher rates sometimes than heterosexual relationships when it comes to violence. So we are seeing it all across all genders, across all relationships, all communities, all economic status. right?
Yeah.
So someone with a little bit more money may be able to keep it out of the community because they have money and access to pay for an attorney to keep things hush hush. Whereas somebody else who has to use community services, their business might, you know, get out a little bit more. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It definitely does, but how it shows up sometimes is very different.
Okay. All right, man. So you do a lot more things. I'm not gonna get into that. We covered 3 things there. So tell everybody again when you, I guess these classes that you have, when are they happening, where they're happening. So if someone wants to tune in or show up live in the studio, where would they go?
Yeah, for sure. So today is what? Tuesday. So tomorrow, for example, Wednesday, the government of the Virgin Islands, their Cigna Health Insurance Board, they have a full week of virtual classes. So I'll be teaching tomorrow night at 6 p.m. So on their page, their Facebook page, GVI Health, and also on the Soca Caribbean Dance Fitness page, I also post it with a reminder on the day of with the Zoom meeting ID and the password. And it's the same password, so it doesn't change. So, you know, Zoom has a cool feature where you could save your meeting IDs. So once you have that meeting ID in there, you have the password, you put it the same information every morning and every afternoon, 9 a.m. every day, 6 p.m. every day. My class is tomorrow at 6 p.m. And then I have classes for seniors Monday and Friday at 9 a.m. through the same program. Now, for individuals who may want to have more of a one-on-one intimate experience, meaning that they want to know who they're taking class with, we also have classes on Zoom, but they could sign up directly through Soca Caribbean Dance Fitness. Right now, it's on the same website as my girlfriend's classes because it's Girlfriendism Fitness, so www.mgcstx.com. And I do post a schedule there, but that's every Tuesday and Thursday right now at 6 p.m. So I change up the style. That's one of the good things of working for yourself. You decide what you want to do. So this week and last week we did belly dance with a Caribbean flair. The weeks before I've done, you know, soca and strength, so that's toning. So from next week we'll actually be doing soca stiletto, which is using kizomba music. So that's actually a mix of Caribbean and African sounds. Kizomba is out of Angola. So that's a fusion of Caribbean and African music, but we'll be doing that with heels. So it's a little bit more sensual. So I do change it up every week. I know, right? Only if you're coming with heels, you know, you can't in a spectator sport. You got to class. So you got to be in her shoes for an hour. And then Friday morning at 7 a.m. with AARP of the Virgin Islands on their Facebook, we do a live class as well at 7 a.m. and that's toning. We actually dance a little bit to Stanley and the 10 Sleepless Nights, so that's really cool. We got the rights from them to use just their music for that senior class. I'm excited about that because I was born into Stanley and the 10 Sleepless Nights. They've been around as long as I've known myself. Yeah. So to be able to provide a fitness class that utilizes their music and some of the quilbe and quadrille movements is really fun. Because, you know, AARP is a national organization, so it's not just local people who are looking at it. We have some people who view from stateside, so we're able to share our culture and our music and our dance in that way as well. Yes. So every day there's something, and I post it all on the Soca Caribbean Dance Fitness page, and we're on Instagram and we're on Facebook as well.
Okay, and then talk about your the location of your boutique.
Yep. So we are in downtown Christiansted. If you're on St. Croix, so our address is 15 King Street, but we're on Prince Street, so you can be west of the First Bank parking lot. We would be south of Zenny's, and we would be north of Sampson House. So if anything, you can always just give us a holla and be like, we're in town and I have no idea where you are. We'll answer and we'll guide you. We'll come look for you. If you can't make it to town, if you're off island, we do ship, we do deliver, and we do have our website, which you can shop at 365 days, 24/7 at www.mgcstx.com. And then on August 1st, we're going to be launching our full website, which will actually be www.girlfriendism.com, which would provide access to all of the services that we provide, including the boutique, which is Girlfriendism Fashion, our fitness classes, which is Girlfriendism Fitness, our wellness and self-care classes, which is Girlfriendism Wellness, our coaching services for women who want to consider entrepreneurship and work on their business plan, or who may be in business but want to grow their business. That's Girlfriendism Business. And then, of course, you know, passionate about the community work and working with individuals who have experienced trauma and abuse, like domestic violence and sexual assault, and that will be under Girlfriendism Hope. And so all of that information will be presented and launched on August 1st for National Girlfriend Day.
All right, man. Sounds like a plan to me.
Awesome.
And the favorite word tonight is girlfriendism.
Girlfriendism, not racism, not classism, not colorism, but girlfriendism is the best ism that we know of, because it's all about love and acceptance and support and empowerment. So we want to defy all the other isms and replace it with our own girlfriendism.
That's right. It's not against us yet, but it will be soon.
I know that's right. Well, listen, if the women in the community happy, that gonna make that mean I am happy too. So girlfriendism is somewhat boyfriendism, okay? We didn't quite get to that yet, but you know, when women are happy, usually you find everything else kind of falls into place in the home, in the community. So we got your back. It may not seem direct, but we got your back. Okay.
And one last thing I wanted to touch on real quick, if you could give us your thoughts, you know, your perspective. This is the It's Your Perspective talk show. This whole thing of Black Lives Matter. Any thoughts on that real quick?
Oh, Lord. Can I do that real quick? You were supposed to ask me that 20 minutes ago. That can't be no real quick. Okay, what can I say in a short time? So yes, I do support Black Lives Matter. Now, I do know that there's a lot of controversy with the funding for Black Lives Matter. I have to look into that. That's not something that I'm quite educated on in terms of where the funding for that initiative goes. Okay. However, regardless of where the funding goes, if you ask me, does my life matter? The answer is yes. Do I consider myself to be Black? Yes. Therefore, do I think Black Lives Matter? Yes. So for me, Black lives have to matter because my life matters, you understand? And I identify as a Black woman. So if I were to say that, no, I don't support Black Lives Matter, for me, that means that I don't think my life matters. So to answer that question, yes. I have recognized that there is some tension between the local perspective and the national perspective, because many feel like Black Lives Matter is only about police brutality, which is not something that we deal with directly here. However, what I do want people to understand is that Black Lives Matter is not just about police brutality. The movement started in part because of it, but it's about oppression against Black people. And Black people are all over the globe. So for me, even though my heart, my life, my livelihood is connected to the land and the people and the culture of the Virgin Islands, I do not feel any less inclined to support Black Lives Matter just because I am in the VI. I have 2 Black sons. They're only 2 and 7, but they are going to grow up, and one day they may want to live in this place called the United States of America. So I am not even just concerned about me, I am concerned about them. And so even if I felt like I'm safe in the VI, there's no racism in the VI, which is not true. There's no police brutality, which brutality may not look the same, but we do have oppression and power and control and corruption in our police departments, in our government, right? And different things that we need to address. I still support Black Lives Matter because I am Black. Now, do I think that we need to have the same level of passion and rigor when it comes to our local crimes? Absolutely. There have been a series of robberies on St. Croix, and we're not necessarily protesting about that. We have gun violence on Black crime all the time. We don't always protest against that. But oppression is a very deep thing. It's not black and white. If it were, we would have ended it a long time ago. Okay, yeah. The reasons that I think we may not be as active when it comes to our local issues is the fact that it may not be race driven. Because it is Black on Black doesn't mean that we don't value it, but it's almost like if, you know, some people say, I could cuss my mother, but not you. You know, that kind of mentality, like, oh, I may cuss and carry on with my mother, but you can't come and cuss and carry on with my mother. Yes. I can't see Black Lives Matter in that way with the national versus local, right? So we have crime here, yes, but it's us, and that's something that we have to figure out. But then when you have somebody of another race who comes and says, I want to kill you just because you're Black, then that does trigger another level of anger, right? And I think that's what we see because it is white on Black. Now, it doesn't mean Black on Black isn't just as important. It doesn't mean we don't need to protest for that. But it will look different. I do think advocacy looks different for different issues. I don't know that we need to protest against each other. I think we need to have more healing conversations, more cultural, historical conversations so we can understand our history, understand how we got where we are, understand the fact that we are still oppressed because we're living in a colony, hello, right? So we do have oppression here, but we need to understand where all that comes from. And so when I say that I see the anger and the pain and the hurt behind posts, initially I was very upset that people weren't understanding why Black lives should matter, especially if they're Black, no matter where they are. But I understand that a lot of it is the pain of, you know, having their own children killed and no one protests for them, or, you know, feeling raped at work every day and no one protested for them. And so all I can say is, I mean, that's a whole hour conversation. I do have a lot of ideas as to where our perspectives may come from, but I do think regardless of what, we just have to recognize that we need to be patient with each other. Everybody is going to have a different perspective, and everybody is entitled to that perspective because their experiences in life is what brought them to that. So I may not be able to speak on your opinion. I may not be able to speak to Soup's opinion. I may not be able to answer to why you protest and why you don't protest, or why you protest for this and not protest for that. But I need to acknowledge the fact that your experiences will trigger different things. So even when it came to domestic violence, I used to be upset with people that why I host an event and only 10 people come up. Yet when, you know, somebody dies, everybody gets upset, right? Because they died at the hands of domestic violence, yet I only have 10 people at an event. So what I come to realize though is just because they don't show up to my event doesn't mean that they're not passionate about it. Doesn't mean that they don't care. A lot of times living in the VI is just about survival. You're just trying to survive. So even protesting sometimes is a privilege because it's like, listen, I care about all of it, but I'm here trying to take care of my children, trying to deal with my household, trying to make sure my lights stay on. It's a lot. It's a lot for people. That's why we need activists. That's why activists are who they are, because they carve time out to focus on these things. We can't expect everybody to be to everything all the time. It's impossible. So all I can encourage people to do is listen to what speaks to them and show up for that and support others in what they're called to do. So you may not come to a domestic violence event, but you could support me. You could share my event. You could like my post. You could tell other people about it, right? I may not be able to make it to every Black Lives Matter protest, but that doesn't mean I'm going to speak up against it, right? If somebody is doing something for good, just support them. And then when you can show up, show up. When you can do something, do something. And that just requires that we be patient and understand that everybody has a different walk of life that brings us to the different things that we choose to support or not support. And then sometimes we just can't take stuff personal. You know, everything ain't about us all the time. You understand? Oh, well, she didn't show up to this, but she show up to this. Listen, Susie and Johnny, they got their own issues and trauma what they got to deal with. You understand? So maybe they wanted to come, but they had stuff dealing with. So we just have to be patient with each other. Show up when you can, but don't judge others when they can't. We don't know what people are going through. And if you're called to do something, be called and be faithful to that. Because that might be your footprint. Yeah. Your footprint, your life footprint that you need to contribute to. And everybody's footprint is different. Yeah. So I stopped getting stressed over how people feel. How you feel. All I could do is be true to myself and what I know to be true. Yeah. Just be ready when you're called. That's all you can really do. That's it. And if you could do something, do something, you know, and just don't criticize other people because they're trying to make a change in the way that they know how. It's different for everybody. Yeah. All right, Khnuma. Khnuma Simmonds is our guest tonight. She has a lot to say. Oh, Lord, yes. We're going to have her on again to sort of talk more about the Black Lives Matter topic. And it's a lot. It's a lot. It's on the news every day, every night. Yeah. It's a thing now. It is. But you know, the thing is, the term is a thing, but the struggle has always been there.
Mhm.
You know, it's just been highlighted now.
Yeah.
And like I say to people, this is not about Floyd. There was an incident that triggered this, but there are many Floyds that have passed. And unfortunately, many Floyds that are going to come if we don't speak up when we can.
Yeah.
And so, you know, at the end of the day, we just have to find the good in everything. If this causes us to be more vocal about our own issues locally, then Black Lives Matter is a good thing. If it causes us to have more conversation with the white folk who are here on the island who have privilege and aren't speaking up about racism, or it creates more opportunity for us to come together as a community, then it's a good thing. You know, so let's find the good in it and use it to our advantage to improve ourselves and our community.
All right, perfect. Well said.
Thank you.
Any final words, man?
Khnuma, it's always a pleasure to have you on.
It's a blessing. Thank you.
For the third
Just
time.
continue blazing. Just continue blazing that trail. Just continue blazing that trail and keep on doing that wonderful work that you're doing for the community and for yourself and for your family, man. One
Thank
perfect
you.
love, Rastafari lives.
That's right.
We like to say one perfect love is our prayers and his blessings. When you put it all together, you get one perfect love. So, Khnuma, stay positive, stay strong, continue blazing the trail, and we'll definitely be in touch with you again to have you back on and talk about some, continue on, more specific about the Black Lives Matter topic.
That's right. This can't be in vain. So we have to continue the conversation and keep that momentum, whether it's anger, whether it's happy, we just have to keep the conversation going so we could improve. So thank you.
Okay, you're quite welcome. So if I can say real quick, this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 p.m. until. We come via Facebook and via Zoom. We also have a full studio here that you can come in as well when you be a guest. So you can either do in studio or via Zoom. Both work well. Check out our internet radio station streaming live from the VI.com radio. Check us out on YouTube. Search for It's Your Talk Show. So on that note, we're out. We got another show lined up for Thursday. Have a great evening. Be safe, wear your mask, and stay 6 feet apart. We're out. Peace.
Take care.
Rastafari lives.
Yes, sir.